Good morning and hello everybody. Today we have with us Mr. Suhas Baxi, former MD of Konecranes, and we are glad to have you here, sir. Welcome at AIC-Pinnacle Startup Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure, sir. So before we get into our discussion about entrepreneurship and startups, we would love to hear from you about your journey at Konecranes as a managing director. So would you like to share something about that?
Yeah, certainly, yes. Konecranes is a Finnish multinational in the area of material handling, and I took care of the South Asian business. We have factories in India, manufacturing setup, engineering setup, global engineering setup, focus on the Indian market to sell our global products, and focus also on creating products for India. So it was a fascinating journey as we tried to do business with the manufacturing companies, power companies, infrastructure companies in the region, and also create products which could be sold to our customers around the world.
Okay.
So it's an interesting space to be in, and as India progresses and become a bigger manufacturing economy, as Indian infrastructure becomes more world-class, companies like Konecranes would continue to look at India as an attractive destination.
Absolutely. So how has your journey been being a head of this organization, fostering entrepreneurship? Was there any connect or entrepreneurship within the organization globally as well as within Asia?
So I would probably not limit my comment and reply only to my experience while I was at Konecranes, but I would probably go back to my time in the industry over the last almost 30 years. India has been an interesting ecosystem for both manufacturing and information technology companies. If you look at the 90s, driven by liberalization, entry of foreign multinationals into India, new products, new business models, new technologies created opportunities, and you had a wave of new type of businesses. Towards the end of 1990s, integration of Indian IT industry with the world, Y2K initially, and then over a period of time, services companies and growth driven by services companies, mobile telephone companies, mobility, India's investment in infrastructure, power industry, all of it has created opportunities for entrepreneurship. And we do not have limitation of number of people who have started small businesses, medium-sized businesses, servicing these Indian opportunities. So I think India is a vibrant ecosystem for entrepreneurship. And any company which comes and starts business in India, and I have helped 3 different companies start businesses in India. One can dive into this entrepreneurial culture, create a solid supply chain. One can dive into the education system and make sure that the right kind of manpower is available for your businesses. So new businesses, existing businesses, spirit of doing something different, I think that exists across sectors in India.
Very true.
And that helps multinational companies like Konecranes create operations in India.
Fabulous. Very nice to know that. You just mentioned while we were discussing about the team of believers. So can you just elaborate on that, please?
Yeah. So let's look at 2 types of businesses. One is let us say a company like Volkswagen comes and starts manufacturing facility in India. They set up a supply chain. They require a number of different type of suppliers. I am an up-and-coming entrepreneur. I become interested in an opportunity to become a supply chain partner. I start a business and I run that business. Now, this is one type of business where definition of what the product is, definition of who the customer is, definition of what are the challenges and opportunities is broadly driven by existing pattern or an existing business model. Now, these type of opportunities, I wouldn't say they are easy to become successful in, but these are the type of opportunities which have created, businesses in SME sector, MSME sector in very large numbers in the Indian manufacturing space. Similarly, if you take IT industry, there are companies who have markets and businesses in the West, and they want to look at India as a cost arbitrage opportunity, create captive centers or look for Indian service providers. And I am a skilled IT professional. I think this is a great opportunity to start my business. I start this service company. I'm not saying it's difficult to easy or difficult to make success out of it, but that's a type of business which is very similar to the manufacturing supply chain partner business.
Correct, yeah.
Now, these businesses requires and have certain ingredients for success, which could, let us call them critical success factors. These critical success factors are very different from critical success factors for businesses which are focused on creating a change. Businesses which are driven by ideas. Some companies like Facebook, Uber, or software product companies which are in the process of creating IP-based new software products. Electric vehicle manufacturing companies which are focused on creating change in mobility. Biofuel companies which are focused on changing the way we use natural resources. Now, these are areas where idea-driven and innovation-driven and entrepreneurship is required.
Correct.
Now, these businesses require a very different ecosystem to succeed.
Totally.
Their critical success factors are different. And this is where my definition of team of believers comes in. If I am an entrepreneur who's working on one such idea, then I need to have a core team of people who believe in this idea.
Dedicated. And
I need to have a team of people who are willing to swim with me through stormy water, against the tide, changing courses, changing strategies, at times dropping concepts that we believed in, but continue to stay focused on innovation happening, change happening.
So true.
Okay. This requires a very different ecosystem as compared to a supply chain partner for Volkswagen or a service company which is ultimately making some small patch of software for Microsoft. And I think that is what we should be now focused on, because India is a big economy. There are local opportunities in India, and in addition to these local opportunities, we have an ability to really drive IP-driven advantage across the world. And if we have to do that, then an ecosystem where there is a team of believers around the entrepreneur will be one of the most important and critical success factors.
Absolutely. So that brings to reminds me that AIC-Pinnacle has been is now a approved IP facilitation center which will be helping startups to actually focus on working on their IPs and getting their patents done. So that process can be speed up through our facilitation center. Looking at what you mentioned about the passion of entrepreneurs as a team or believers, we've seen that startups come to a certain stage and then get stuck as far as the scaling is concerned. So what do you think are the challenges when it comes to scaling up for a startup or an enterprise?
I think a very, very important question, because scaling up is different from an idea.
Absolutely, very true. Yeah.
Almost every startup which is focused on creating something new is driven by passion to create that product or create the concept and prove that concept. Let's call it the proof of concept stage. You at the proof of concept stage, it is extremely important that you have an ability to convert your idea into a successful delivery the first time. It need not be something which has mastered the process of delivery, right? But once you have come to a point where proof of concept is delivered, then comes an important point of replicating that proof of concept as easily as possible, as many times as possible, so that advantage of scale is delivered. Right? And I think this is where entrepreneurs need to start thinking about. What is going to be my customer engagement model? What is going to be and I'm not even talking about business model. What's going to be my customer engagement model? Why will people buy what I have?
Correct.
How easy do I make it for them to buy my products or my services? How do I make sure that my customers remain happy? How do I make sure that repeat customers come? So that this idea becomes scalable and replicable.
Yes.
I would say that's the first challenge of scale. The second challenge of scale, having assumed that you've reached a point where you've got large number of customers, is to make sure how do you create a profitable enterprise. I think this is where it becomes a slippery slope for most startups.
Yes.
Because a lot of young people are driven by, by that time I would have reached a point in valuation game where I would be in a position to create a big value and exit. I'm not saying that's a wrong strategy or a bad strategy, but an enterprise ultimately needs to become profitable. It needs to generate cash.
That should be their ultimate goal.
And it needs to generate cash and profit quarter on quarter, every quarter. How do you create those enterprises? That's the second and that's where people get stuck at a level, €1 million or $1 million enterprise, not able to grow beyond that. I think that's the second point of scalability challenge. And the third point of scalability challenge is, and this I have seen even in established companies, it need not be a startup. Is $1 billion turnover globally a big enough turnover to sustain as an independent company? May or may not be. Okay. So how do you make sure that an enterprise created ultimately is able to deliver value either as an independent company or as a part of a multinational conglomerate, as a part of a diverse ecosystem? That's the third level of scalability challenge. Okay. And I think we have enterprises at all these three levels. Companies stuck at idea level, not able to replicate it. Companies stuck at customer level, not able to convert it from customer acceptance to an ongoing business, and companies stuck with a challenge of scale. Or scale of size. And I think this is where we need to focus on and help create an ecosystem where people can navigate these waters.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for elaborating more on what scaling is, because people are still stuck with where exactly I'm stuck as far as scaling is concerned. And good that these 3 points were brought up. So as you're aware, Niti Aayog backed incubation, that's AIC-Pinnacle, and it's been there for almost more than a year now. We have startups who are mentored and with been there, done that entrepreneurs. We're glad and happy to have you on board as our mentor, and already we have started the process of mentoring with our incubatees. What will be your advice to the incubatees or startups who are getting onto such a platform where there are quite a lot of opportunities brought to them on the table with mentors like you and then the Industry Connect? So any inputs on that? Yeah.
So 2 points. One is, what is it that somebody like me could bring to the table for a startup? I've spent time in B2B companies in software sector as well as manufacturing sector. I've spent time with companies who've been at different stages of startup life. And I think from that point of view, I'm sure, if someone talks to me, I would be in a position to provide the right kind of advice for what could be the strategic direction or alternative. But having said that, there are certain areas where I do believe opportunities exist. And especially for a setup like AIC-Pinnacle to create value and to create a differentiation. We have fairly well-established ecosystems for software startups and IT startups. Innovation ideas, people with experience, all of that exists. Unfortunately, similar system does not exist for manufacturing as a domain.
Yeah.
We need to probably, in AIC-Pinnacle, work towards creating a similar ecosystem for manufacturing startups. How do we create that creative abrasion which allows new ideas to emerge? How do we make people start believing in some of these new ideas and take a risk of starting new enterprises which are focusing on creating a change, creating new business model? It could be around robotics, it could be around AI, it could be around automation, it could be around something which is current but needs a change. Okay, but there are lots of opportunities. We need to create an ecosystem where we are able to convince experienced professionals to start working on ideas that they have and take risk with those ideas. Second, then use the kind of setups that you've created in AIC-Pinnacle, whether it is around the kind of laboratory facilities that you have, or manufacturing facilities that you have, or networking that you have, to provide advantage of that, so that their ideas are able to then go through those 3 steps of converting idea to proof of concept, from proof of concept to a successful small business, and from a successful small business to a scaled up business. I think that's the journey that we should help focus on, and help create this ecosystem for manufacturing companies. And I would say, for me, that is definitely something which keeps my antennas up, and which makes me happy to participate in.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure having you here, sir. And thank you very much for spending time, and look forward to work with you with your mentoring for our incubatees and many more things to come. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you.
And look forward to working with you guys.
Pleasure. Thank you.